Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Living the Sweet Life. I'm your host, TJ Sweet, and on this podcast, we are committed to helping you go from where you are to where you want to be. And how we help you do that is by helping you live with intention, help you learn how to reshape your mindset, and learn how to look at the world through a grateful lens. So before we get too far into this topic this week, because I'm willing to bet this is going to hit home for everybody listening, I want to say thank you for spending time every week, every Monday, every Mindset Monday, by listening to these episodes, whether you listen on iTunes or Spotify or wherever else you take in these episodes, or maybe even watch on YouTube. We try to do this in as many ways as possible so that we make sure that you feel like you're being invested in while you invest in yourself. We care about you. We care about how you listen and how you really kind of get all of this information so that it's something meaningful for you every week, because we know your time is probably the most precious thing you have. And so we make it a priority to make it meaningful for you. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't hit it yet, so that you get notifications that you are also still growing every week with us on this podcast. So this week is going to be an important topic because I will assume that we all struggle with this idea of balancing every aspect of our lives. There's always a personal aspect, there's a career, there's a mental health, a physical health, a spiritual health. There's just a lot of different things that we're always trying to juggle. But maybe, what if we didn't think about it as juggling? What if we thought about it as intentional living, not hoping we don't drop a ball? Because I have tried to learn how to juggle. I can juggle with 2 balls at pretty good cadence, but that's not really something that is really all that difficult, right? So if you only had 2 things in your life you had to worry about, you'd probably be pretty good at it. But imagine in your life all the different things that you feel like you're juggling. First of all, the words that we use. Maybe what if you said, I'm balancing, I'm integrating these things in my life, instead of feeling like you're trying to juggle them, because there's always that fear of what if you drop it? If it's actually important to you, you don't want to drop it. It means something to you. So let's reframe how we find balance. Maybe it's integration into your life, because it's really hard to put one thing down and pick another thing up when both things matter. When you think about putting your family time down so that you can go work really hard, whether you work during the day, work in the evening, work on the weekends, maybe you travel. But this family piece is so important as well. So how do we level it back out? You're probably never going to be perfectly level all the way across the board all the time. But how do we, in our heart, find peace knowing that we're creating systems and processes to actually balance all of the things that are important to us in our lives? That's what this episode's all about. We have these moments of motivation to where we have these balance moments to where things kind of feel like they're perfectly aligned and everything's going well. And maybe that lasts a week, maybe that lasts 2 weeks, maybe that lasts a year for you. But what I want to talk more about today is when you're out of alignment, when you're not balanced, when you feel like you're working too much, or maybe, your mental health is struggling, your physical health is struggling. How do we find ways to kind of interrupt that pattern so a day out of balance doesn't turn into a year out of balance, that doesn't turn into 10 years out of balance? That's a challenge. These days, and I say these days, but it's always been a difficult thing to manage. But really, this modern life that we live in and trying to understand, there's a struggle to making everything a priority. Because when everything's a priority, then nothing actually is a priority. So we have to really kind of put our lives in certain categories, certain buckets, and that's the Wheel of Life assessment that I have. If you go to my website, tjsweet.net, you can get that. You can download it for free, and it walks you through an exercise, because it's really important to think about, if we're trying to balance things, we have to know how many things we are going to balance, but also how are those things going to impact the next thing. So say you want to work on your physical health balance. You want to try to go to the gym every day. You want to try to, eat certain foods, go on a certain diet, and do some of those things. But if you also have stress and you're trying to balance your work life, but you can't bring your food to work, Then you start to think about, okay, how can I balance my work life while still balancing my nutrition and my exercise? But then you also think about your family. How do you do all these things where your family doesn't eat what you want to eat, or you don't have time to work out because you need to take your kids somewhere? So you can understand this isn't about juggling. This is about just prioritizing and creating a system and a process, one, of offering yourself grace while holding yourself accountable, and remembering the times that you have been disciplined and keeping more promises to yourself. So it is tough, but self-care also then leads to the next thing, like we've talked about, this idea of balance. Self-care means that you're taking care of yourself so that you can help take care of others. Self-care isn't you not taking care of other people. It's you taking care of yourself so that you can be at your best, whether it's in your personal life, in your relationships, at work, whatever it may be. So self-care isn't you being selfish. It's you taking care of yourself so that you can then be at your best for other people. So maybe that balance kind of turns into an integration, because some of these moments can just be 5 minutes worth of self-care that can have a pretty big impact in your life. And so when you really understand that juggling things is an old way of thinking, but when you take the power back and think, you know what, I'm going to balance and prioritize and actually make a plan to do certain things throughout the day. And so if you haven't started planning out your day yet, I recommend you do that. And I actually plan out my day the day before. So before I go to bed every night, I kind of think about, what do I need to be ready for the next day? On Sundays, I prep my clothes for the week based on the events and things that I have to do that week. Now, I know some of you are already thinking, that's insane. I don't know. I don't have enough time on Sundays to do that, or whatever it may be. That's just a process and a system that works for me. Because what was happening before, trying to balance all the things in my life, I was waking up that morning and trying to find what I wanted to wear, and then I couldn't find it, or, I had to steam it or whatever it was, and that caused more stress in my life. So then that fell out of balance. Then I was running late to work, or I needed to go to a speaking engagement. I didn't have what I like to wear. So then I had to panic and go buy something else and try to find. You can see how just a couple moments of actual self-care, a couple moments of preparing for your week, preparing for the day, can actually put you in more alignment. So every day I wake up, I know what I'm going to wear. I know what I'm going to do. I've already thought about my day. I've thought about what am I going to eat? When do I need to work out? But I have adapted this agility as well, because my goal is to get it done, not just obsess about the exact time that I do it. And so whenever I get up in the morning, if I know that I have a busy evening, if I have a speaking engagement, I'm traveling, whatever it may be, I think about, okay, well, what are the important things? Like, I want to make sure I walk. I want to make sure I stretch. I want to make sure I move. So then I think, okay, well, I better just wake up a little bit earlier and do that in the morning so that I still get it done, instead of hoping I have time for things. Because hoping we have time for things is a juggling strategy. It doesn't really work. Hope isn't a strategy. And then the problem is we let one day go by being out of balance, and then that turns into multiple days. And there's a great quote that talks about missing something once isn't a new habit. But once you start missing it the second time and the third time, you've developed a new habit of no longer doing the thing that you set out to do. So finding balance is a daily exercise. A lot of times I hear people say that, last week they were balanced, this week they're out of balance, and so on and so forth. It's not something you set it and forget it. This is something you own and commit, because it matters, because your mental health always matters, because it's not a matter of when things slow down, when I get this project done, when, whatever it may be, because there's always going to be something that's going to interrupt our balance if we're not owning it. If we're relying on external factors to control how much and how well we're balancing our lives, we're going to struggle, because external things are always going to come up. So really taking ownership of your balance is also a powerful thought, right? And that's not a juggling thought. Taking ownership is a prioritizing. It's a matter of you making decisions and you making choices to actually have a balanced life. And then whenever when you're thinking about your balance, you have to be a priority. You have to be part of the balance, not how much can you balance doing everything for everybody else. But there's actually ways that I use all the time. My mom taught me this a long time ago, and then, of course, I've learned a lot more since then. So the Pomodoro technique of intentional work I used to use it for studying, but work. And it really is kind of a simple, it's science based at this point, but understanding that it's about working really hard for 25 minutes, taking a 5-minute break, working really hard for 25 minutes, taking a 5-minute break. So how your hour looks a little different. And so that's balance. That's a simple kind of a strategy to maintain balance to where you still take care of yourself. But when I tell you the brain itself can only really fully function and comprehend and kind of continually move forward without being distracted for 25 minutes at a time. So whenever I do a speaking engagement, I always time it to where I do 25 minutes of content. I give 5 minutes of a download, whether it's a group discussion where we do Q&A, but the brain needs time. Your body needs time to process, to heal, to rest. So that's all part of balance. And so maybe today, in your workday, you do 50 minutes of work if you can't stop every 25, but maybe you do 50 and 10, or maybe even 55 and 5, and you stop doing 7 straight hours of work to where you eat at your desk, you don't drink any water, you don't even go to the bathroom, you don't do anything to actually refill your cup throughout the day. That's what happens when we get burned out, is we stop taking care of ourselves. But I want you to stop and think about, why does this matter? Why does it matter if I balance my day a little better? Let me give you a thought. Again, the gap between knowing better and doing better is purpose. You know you want it to be better. And maybe, how do you feel at the end of the day? Because if you get home and you give the people that you love the most and that you're the most grateful for, if you just give them the rest of you, it's going to wear on you over time. You're going to think about it at work. So both aspects of your life are going to be out of balance. But what if you committed to, when you get off of work and you get home, that your family and the people you love the most, that they get the best of you? Is that enough? Is that enough motivation for you to find that balance, to change up what you're doing instead of hoping something else happens? What if you started taking control so that maybe balance is the key to being more present, to be able to love on the people that you love the most? And it could be as simple as going for a walk, going for a 5-minute walk, going for a 10-minute walk. Maybe it's in the morning, as you can see around me now. Maybe it's seeing a sunrise and sunset. I've talked to people all the time, and they say they haven't seen the sunrise and sunset in a really long time. And not that they haven't been seeing it, but they haven't been paying attention to it. They haven't been letting it actually captivate them like it should and like it used to. And so maybe you set a plan. There's always a clock that will always say what time the sun is rising and what time the sun is setting. But it's up to us to be balanced enough to pay attention to that. But the good thing is about, again, the science of watching the sunrise and sunset. You've heard me talk about it a lot. But the circadian rhythms of our bodies, our brain takes like a very important note when it sees the sunrise, because then the clock starts of how long should it be expected to perform and so on and so forth. So it's 8 to 10 hours. But then the sunset also gives our brain a good sense of, okay, we're winding down on the day. So if you struggle with sleeping, it could be your circadian rhythm. It could be that you're ramping up at night, so then your body can't really rest. So then you wake up with a higher cortisol level, but then you don't see the sunrise, which will also reduce your cortisol levels. So then you're out of balance, and you can see this loop. It just keeps happening. But it just takes one choice to choose balance, one choice to choose purpose and meaning and the people, because doing more isn't actually the goal. It's doing more meaningful things in our lives. That's actually the goal that helps us kind of break up some of this stress. And if you're listening on a Monday, on a Mindset Monday, and then all of a sudden it feels like Friday, just think about how fast that week went by. What moments did you miss out on mentally? Maybe you were physically there, but if moments become memories when we're grateful in the moment. So maybe your balance is, I'm going to be more grateful in more moments. There's so many different ways to find this balance, but it really is understanding that balance is for your well-being so that you can show up for the people that you love the most. And this quote that I've talked about a bunch is really taking care of yourself so that you can be at the best for the people that you love the most. And, taking care of each other shouldn't just be about when we're in stress and adversity and heartbreak and sadness. That's not just about what taking care of each other means. Sometimes maybe you take care of yourself for the people that you love, while the people that you love take care of themselves for you. And maybe the way that you take care of yourself in a new way, in a different way, is this balance. Because everybody wants everybody else to be at their best, to be happy, to feel fulfilled and all these different things. But if we don't check in on each other, because maybe we're doing something that's making somebody go out of balance. So I check with people, and do you have time to have this conversation? And so I let people know what time I go to bed, because I have to protect that for my own balance. But I'm honest with that. So how do you maybe reach out to somebody who seems stressed, who seems overwhelmed, and just say, how can I show up for you? Because maybe sometimes just that alone is a good way to balance. And so I have friends that I talk to from time to time, and we kind of have more of a normal cadence now than we ever used to. But we just show up for each other. And that's a good balance for us. I don't get to see them a lot. I don't live near them right now, but we find balance to not go 6 months without talking to each other, but it's a matter of every once in a while we check in with each other and we feel connected. So there's always ways to kind of tweak some small little things, but if it matters and it means something to you, you'll always find a way to do this. But the thing about balance, if your goal, when you work really hard and you fall out of balance, if your goal is to work really hard and get a lot done, I'm going to kind of let you in on a secret. That's going to last for a shorter period of time. But when you actually find balance, you'll be more productive. You'll be more creative. You'll be more aware. You'll bring the things you're actually doing will bring you more joy. Because how we do the things matters, not just how many of the things that we do. So what if you enjoyed more of the process? What if you were more creative? What if you built more relationships? What if your grinding, hustling mentality incorporated balance so that you found more purpose in what you're doing instead of just what you're doing? You always had that balance of remembering why you do it in the first place. Because the quality of your life is determined on the quality of your habits. And again, the things that we think lead to the things that we feel, which lead to the things that we choose. So when you think about how do you think about balance? If you think about balancing your life as juggling, you're going to make the certain feelings, right, of fear that you don't want to drop anything. And then you're going to choose certain things that maybe not even lead you to where you want to be. But if you start thinking about, I want to have a healthy balance in my life and I have control over it because I want to show up for the people that I love the most and I want to create the best work I can. I want to make the most impact I can, not just make an impact, but make the most you possibly can. And the only way through that and the only way to that is to remembering why. Me and my team here, we were just talking about why do we do this? Yes, we push, and yes, we grow, and yes, we do all these things. But if we aren't doing it for the same why, for the why that motivates us to work hard, then we've fallen out of balance. And it's okay to fall out of balance. You just have to recognize it, right? So there's a self-awareness component to this about why do you do what you do? Why are you making the choices you're making? And there's going to be chapters where you do push hard. You do work hard. But don't let that turn into your norm. Just think about balance and why you're doing what you're doing. Because again, we're all here for each other and for the relationships that we have. But if you're not careful, like I've not been careful, you can put the blinders on and get too focused and fall out of balance. And then you realize the things that actually needed you the most fell out of perspective. And then you got distracted by just focusing on what you needed to do and less on why it matters. So I hope this episode really kind of makes you pause and think about how balanced are you in every area of your life. Again, that Wheel of Life assessment on my website, it really talks about stress and finance and relationships and physical health, mental health, all these different categories, because everything we do impacts everything else. Now, I'd suggest making one change at a time. Don't try to change all 6 things at once. Don't try to change your day, all of your day at once. Small changes will lead to consistent outcomes. So today, take a closer look at your daily routines and really think about what is one area that you feel like you're way out of balance. And then think about what you want to do, how you want to do it, and why it matters. I hope this episode's resonated with you to maybe find a little bit more balance, to take care of you a little bit more often, take care of others as well, but never at the sake of you taking care of yourself. Take care of your work schedule, encourage your peers, encourage other people around you. Ask them how they're balancing things, asking them how you can help them balance things while you also balance things for yourself. I appreciate you listening. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. And I'll remind you, like I do with every single episode, that you always have the power and the choice to reshape your mindset, live with intention, and look at the world through a grateful lens. Until the next episode, never stop.